Hey, Kratom Quitters. This is the Kratom Sobriety Podcast, episode number 102. I am Libby, and this week's interview is with a guy named Mike. It's an interesting interview because we get to have both sides of the story, whereas he is an addict. He's dealt with other addictions. He dealt with Kratom addiction too. Meanwhile, while he was in Kratom addiction, he met somebody also in Kratom addiction. So I got to interview her too, and we'll hear that interview next week. But we thought today, and with Jacob, we thought we would talk about relationships in addiction. So I have been in addiction with people that are also in addiction with me, where we're using the same substance. And what I thought was really commendable with Mike was that he and his partner made it out together. And that's never been the case for me. If I've been in a really toxic relationship, that fed off each other. And ultimately, one of us, it was always me, I left and got better. And therefore, that relationship was null and void. I know I've also had experience having relationships in addiction where I have fallen back into addiction. Meanwhile, I've been in a relationship with a normie. So that's a whole nother experience too.
I haven't seemed to have any really long-term meaningful relationships with other addicts. I talked a little bit about this with Decima on episode 46. So feel free to go back and listen to that, listeners, if you're interested. But one of the things we talked about is it seemed like I gravitated to people that were not going to cause more chaos in my life because I was causing so much chaos in my life, if that makes any sense. And one thing I've also recognized since then, through honestly just more therapy and some more work on myself, is I also seem to have had these patterns in active addiction where I would get my life together. I would moderate my drinking or my substance abuse or whatever my drug of choice was at the time, or drugs of choice were at the time. And but then things would go off the rails and I'd have this cycle, and I put a lot of strain on a relationship as a result of that. But just looking back at it, I don't know how I would have done with another addict. I think it would have been really hard. And I think it's really hard to tolerate someone else's bullshit when you're the one creating your own bullshit, I think.
Yeah, I know for me, it was I could get really serious about quitting, but you can only be as serious as your partner is.
Yeah.
For me personally, because if they were using, I felt I had also other problems like codependency and things like that, where I was the person paying for all of the everything in the relationship. So I would be paying for the drugs and the whatever we were using.
I've been there.
Yeah. So it's when you're doing that, it's how are you going to justify paying for them and not partaking in them? But maybe we'll do toxic relationships on another.
Yeah, we talked about a little bit maybe. I've had some short-term relationships that were like that, some toxic friend groups, definitely, where it was all about self-destruction and drug use, and I would just say regular debauchery, particularly in my early 20s, staying out all night, going to raves, just being a degenerate, more or less. It was tough. It was hard to have any sort of relationship with anyone in that state. And that's when coming out of that, I got, I wouldn't say sober. I cleaned up for 6 months or so. And then I started moderately drinking and doing drugs again. But I had met someone, and that relationship was good for a while until my, usage wasn't great. And there was a lot of other things that were problematic in that relationship that I think would have made it collapse regardless of my using. That's a whole other story. But anyways, I can see how you can feed off the toxicity. And yes, what I really wanted to say is it's really hard to change behaviors when you're with someone, even when you really consciously want to. If you're constantly around someone that's using, particularly if it's your drug of choice, it's so hard to resist that, I think.
Yeah, and that's ultimately why I was wow, I can't believe they stayed together, and how amazing that is that their connection lasted through that. Because what happened for me was I went to rehab and they didn't get better, and then there was no basis for a relationship anymore. It was really interesting to hear a whole other perspective on like how a using relationship can go and be potentially successful. They're due to be engaged, or I think they're engaged to be married. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was really cool to hear.
Yeah, that is a very atypical story, I think. And it is really cool to hear that. I'm excited to hear how they were able to go through everything you have to go through to get yourself together and come out of addiction and recovery. But to be able to do it with someone together simultaneously, there's a lot of comfort in that, but at the same time, a lot of probably stress. And that's going to be really interesting.
Were you in active kratom addiction in a relationship with a normie?
Yes, I was. It was interesting. I talked a little bit about this with Decima. For me, it wasn't as destructive as like alcohol and other drugs were, even though it was a nightmare. I don't want to say that because that's not really true. The way I would probably articulate it is mentally and somewhat physically, it was very destructive. Probably as much, maybe more than alcohol and, other drugs for me. But when it comes to ruining relationships, ruining my life, it wasn't, because I think it didn't impair me in the same way and make me make bad decisions and make me be like not there. I wasn't there. It was just different. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I had exactly the same experience actually, because my current partner supported me through the addiction, emotionally supported me through the addiction and then the recovery, and we're still together. And
that's great.
I know what you mean. Like it you don't get the same kind of chaotic repercussions as you would maybe with like harder drugs that are harder to obtain, or alcohol that's just so volatile. I would say like my sex life definitely took a toll, but
yes,
I was still very much like present and aware and able to have grounded, real, logical conversations and carry about my life in a seemingly healthy way, air quotes. But yeah, it was more destructive for like me as a individual.
A blessing and a curse for an addict when you find kratom, I think, because it does exactly what you just said. You can continue and kind of function in your life and you're like on autopilot, but it's just never ends. It's like an endless Groundhog Day cycle until you just get so mentally and physically drained that you just can't do it anymore. And that takes a long time for some people, and for some people it's faster. And I guess that's really all drugs when you boil it down to it.
Yeah, it has I don't know how to call it. Like it has an interesting logarithm, if you will. Like it, yeah, it does. It's different.
And your partner is a normie as well?
Total normie, like the most normal person I've ever met. It blows my mind that someone could be that normal.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Has a drink maybe 3 times a year.
Okay, maybe I don't know what you mean then. Yeah, that's a little different.
Like crazy normal.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you have that support.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we'll get to the interview.
Cool.
Hi, Kratom Quitters. This is the Kratom Sobriety Podcast, episode number 102, and I'm Libby. And today I'm here with Mike. Mike, I'll have you introduce yourself. You want to tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Mike. I'm 43 years old. I'm from Washington State, up in a little town called Bellingham, Washington, up near the Canadian border. I make music and like to do creative stuff. I love cooking and just healthy living and all that fun stuff.
What kind of music do you make?
A little bit of everything. I dabble in hip hop and EDM and chill stuff and rock and roll. I kind of just make a little bit of everything. Not anything really well, but just for fun.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you first got stuck on kratom?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm one of the people that used Kratom to get off of harder substances. I've battled with addiction for many, many years. I was addicted to all sorts of stuff. But I first honestly found Kratom online, probably somewhere, like trying to figure out stuff that helped with opiate withdrawals, and found Kratom that way. Sort of used it as a crutch in and out of my recovery and thinking I was sober, but really I was taking Kratom for a long time, thought that it was helping me stay sober, but in reality kind of just found out it was just another addiction that went to all the same dark places that all my other addictions went. So
what other harder substances were you on, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no worries. So I was using opiates, kind of was my DOC. Struggled with alcohol too, although it wasn't ever really my primary substance of choice. I mean, at one point I was kind of a garbage can of drugs. I would just take anything and everything to get through. I went to rehab in 2017 for pills. I was also abusing Xanax and other stuff at that point in time too. Got clean. Had about 9 months out of rehab in recovery, was doing pretty good. And it was Kratom that actually took me back out. I was on Facebook and there was like one of those memes that popped up. It said on probation starter pack. And it was like a Monster energy drink, a vape, a meeting slip, and a bag of Kratom. And I was like, Kratom? Oh, yeah, because I was living in a sober living house at that point in time. And first thought is like, oh, they won't test for Kratom. That's perfect. And I went to the store and got Kratom and ended up staying up for like 2 days straight, just taking Kratom and like tweaking out in my sober living house. And then I ended up relapsing and going back out on pills. And at that point in time, the pills were starting to turn into the fentanyl stuff that's out now, which I didn't really know. I think subconsciously, I probably knew that there was something different about them. And that was kind of what I was hooked on at that point in time. So Kratom never really scratched the itch all the way. And so I relapsed and went back out on pills, got kicked out of the sober living house, went down another very dark road with pills, and then got clean, back on just taking Kratom, and then kind of did that cycle for a couple of years until Kratom finally just wore me out, and I was at the end of my rope on that. So
it's 2017, you relapse on Kratom, you kind of like go back down the rabbit hole of pills. And then are you using Kratom to get off of the pills?
Yeah, so every time that I would get off of opiates, I would use Kratom to get me off of the opiates because it made the withdrawals bearable. And then I just stayed on Kratom. I mean, there was never a time that I wasn't using Kratom when I was getting clean up until March of this year is when I finally got off of Kratom.
Was it the powder or any like extract shots?
Yeah, primarily a powder user. I dipped my toes into the extracts and the shots and all that kind of stuff. But I could tell right away when I did that, oh, this is opening a whole new door of this, because when I would go back to taking just the powder from the extracts, then I would feel the withdrawals and I'd have to take more powder. And I was always playing that game of taking just enough to not feel horrible and try to get like a little buzz, but then I would take too much and I would feel like garbage. And it was like, okay, well, now I just have to wait, until I feel horrible again, and then I can take it and feel better, and that whole up and down roller coaster. But yeah, primarily powder.
That's good, dude, because it's a whole nother level and you know it when you started.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I feel very fortunate that I got out before, especially like the new 7OH stuff. I know that if I would have ever tried that, it would have been game over, because that's like a whole nother level of it.
Primarily just powders. Were you getting it from the head shops?
So I started off getting it from head shops. And then my partner, Amina, she was also a Kratom user when we met. And that was kind of like this thing that we bonded over when we first met, was like, we were like, oh, you take Kratom too? I take Kratom. We both kept it in the same kind of like little pre-workout jar. And we were like, oh my God, that's so funny. We both keep our Kratom powder in our pre-workout. She was actually getting it from a friend by the kilo. And so we just started splitting kilos at that point and buying them from her friend. And we actually just added up a couple days ago because she like had all the Venmo receipts. We're like, how much money we spent, and it was a lot. In the past 3 years, it was over $10,000. And we're just like, oh my God. And I know that in like the grand scheme of people's addictions, I've heard people that have spent that on extract shots in like 3 months. But still, it's like when I look back, oh man, I could have had an extra $10,000 in my retirement account or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. I'm excited to talk to her too. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the journey of getting off of the Kratom and what that looked like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd made a few attempts before to try to just quit cold turkey, and it always failed after about a day. I would like start on a Friday and then try to either call in sick on a Friday or just work a half day or something, and then like try to go through the weekend and then fail. And then Sunday I would take a bunch and then I'd feel horrible Monday. So I did that a couple times, and I did get one brief bout in my journey where I got 30 days off of it. And then I just was like, well, that wasn't that bad. I don't know what was different that time. Like, I think just like I took enough time off and I was like, really like, okay, I'm going to get through this. But I didn't really build like any foundation in my recovery. I was just kind of white knuckling it through that. And at that point, Amina was still using Kratom. So there was still Kratom in the house. And I kind of was like one day, like, well, after the day's over, I could take like 1 tablespoon. And then the next day, and then the next day. And then it was like before I knew it, I was just taking Kratom all over again. Finally, it was like, okay, this is the end of the line. I just started having horrible panic attacks and like crazy anxiety. Every single day I would wake up in total dread. And I mean, for a decent amount of time in my Kratom usage, I would make up a thing of Kratom and set it by my bed and wake up at like 5 a.m., take the Kratom, go back to sleep, try to wake up and not be in withdrawal. And then by the end of it, I would do that and I would still be in withdrawal. I would get up, I would take more Kratom. I'm still having panic attacks. I'm still just like filled with dread. I feel horrible. My head's getting the wobbles. And I was just, this is insane. We're supposed to be doing all this cool stuff. Like we're planning on getting married and having this like new chapter in our life. And I was like, I can't do all of this if I'm still on Kratom. I don't want to be going and getting married and trying to plan a wedding and do all these things if I'm having to sneak out to the car and like go take Kratom in between. Felt a lot of shame and like I was lying. I have a sponsor. I'm an AA. I wasn't honest with my sponsor about what I was dealing with. Just finally like told Amina, I need to quit. You can quit too if you want to, but like I have to do it. And so we just made the choice to stop and kind of made a plan and got it together.
So you did that together. She was like, okay, I'll join you.
Yeah, she could tell. I mean, she had wanted to quit and she was kind of tapering her usage to get it under control. And I was just like, I have to do this. Like, I feel like I'm dying. I feel like I'm going insane. And so, yeah, we kind of made a plan together. We each took a week off of work and staggered it. So like I took a week off and kind of detoxed while she was still working, and then she took a week off so that we could kind of like help each other through the different parts of it. She had not a lot easier, but like she tapered really well. She did a really good job tapering and got down to I think about 2 grams a day or whatever. She'll tell her story, but I jumped from about 15 grams a day or so, and it was rough. I took a week off of work initially, told them I needed another week. 3rd week, they're like, either you're coming back or we got to let you go. And I was like, okay, well, then I'm going to go because I still am not right. I was using for about 7 or 8 years of like strictly Kratom. I mean, not strictly, but like that was my main substance with some lapses in there. But it took like for me to get over, especially the anxiety and the dread and all that stuff, a solid couple weeks. And then the pause lasted for a decent amount of time too, but I was able to kind of get my footing under me after about 3 weeks or so and sort of return to a bit of normalcy.
You say the pause happened right away, or did you have a gap where you kind of felt better?
I had the gap. I had that kind of pink cloud there for about a month in, I would say. Pink cloud started until about probably 60, 90 days in. And then I had the pause kick in. And it was just, I think for me, it's that like feeling better, feeling better, feeling better, and then just plateauing. And it's like, oh, I'm just stuck here. And then that kind of feels depressing in a way. And so I was just like, oh, now I'm just stuck here. I thought I was getting better. And so yeah, from like 90 days to about 4 month mark, I kind of had a dip where I was just like, oh, I felt no motivation, things that I had been excited about in recovery in the first 90 days didn't feel good anymore. And I just kind of felt like I was going backwards. But, I've got a really good support community. And so it kind of helped me through some of that stuff for sure.
How would you characterize your withdrawals? Like, what was your experience like?
They were awful at first, for sure. I mean, the first 7 days were 5, 6 showers a day, just pacing back and forth, crying a lot, feeling like I wanted to punch something. And I think, the biggest things that helped were going for walks, even though I didn't want to, listening to music. Honestly, yeah, I mean, just listening to sad music and crying was honestly like the biggest, because I just felt like I was detoxing like all of the emotions that I had been holding up. My dad passed away 2 years ago, and I was on Kratom still when he passed. And so I kind of had numbed a lot of that stuff out and hadn't really processed it. And then Amina's dad passed a year later on my birthday. And then about 3 days later, my brother-in-law passed away. So it was just like this one thing after another. And the whole time I was just numb to it all. I just like, I could tell in my head, I'm like, you should be sad. This is sad. And it was, but it was like, I didn't feel it like in my soul until I got off Kratom. And then like all of the emotions came out, and it was just like, oh my God, like I've been holding all of this in. Yeah, that was helpful for sure. But the withdrawals are awful. Like I think that's one of the things that sucks. People will read online that like, oh, Kratom's not even that bad and the withdrawals aren't bad, blah, blah, blah. And that's not my experience at all. And that's not to scare people, just to know, you're not alone if you're feeling like this is hard to get off of, or harder to get off of than even other substances that people have maybe gotten clean from before. So
I'm so sorry to hear about all the loss that you experienced. And there would be times when I was on Kratom where I thought I was processing and I was like crying and experiencing some type of grief or whatever, but it didn't occur to me until getting off. It was like being processed through a filter almost. And
yeah,
it's wild how it really blocks you. It really blocks you. I also have been a garbage can in the past, and I've gotten off of other things, and I agree. It was horrific.
Yeah, it's a very unique experience for sure. It's not, I mean, it's the closest thing is definitely opiate withdrawals, in my opinion. But even that, the pause, especially from Kratom, just seems like it lasts and lingers.
Yeah.
But it does end eventually.
Yeah. So it was March, right? For you?
Yeah. So I'm coming up on 8 months on the 22nd.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And so how long would you say the pause lasted for you?
4 months is probably when I really felt like, okay, I'm starting to, just the energy came back, and then like my excitement for things came back. I could go run errands all day and not think about it at all, and not like drive past a gas station or a smoke shop and get that itch in my head. And so, yeah, I'd say about 4 months is when things really turned around.
Was there anything that helped? Did you use any supplements, any meditation, or any other than walking? You mentioned walking and music, but like I'm wondering if you had any support.
Yeah, for sure. The main thing that really was like the big help this time, meditation for sure. I do that. I pray. I mean, I'm still exploring what my spiritual journey is. So I definitely, kind of tap into some of that stuff. The community that I found was really like the big part in changing all of this for me this time. On Reddit, I think, and was looking up Quitting Kratom on Reddit and kind of getting like information from there. And somehow I found the Quitting Kratom Facebook support group. And then I learned that there were meetings. And so the meetings and community really was like a big part of my recovery this time, because every time I was feeling like crap or that I wanted to use or that I just was angry or whatever, like I would pop in and talk to people on there, or I would share it in a meeting. Yeah, that was a big part. I host the Friday night Quitting Kratom support meeting, or There Is a Way Out meeting. And when I first came in, the meetings had like 5 or 6 people in them. And now like most of the meetings are pushing 25, 30, 40, 50 people sometimes even. And it's just crazy to see like how many people have come in. And so that's been a really big part of it, kind of finding a community of people that like outside of traditional recovery and all that kind of stuff was like Kratom specific, and people knew what I was going through and could recommend supplements and things like that. I definitely did take a decent amount of supplements: magnesium, vitamin C, black seed oil, vitamin D. I mean, I took everything, ashwagandha, anything that would help with anxiety or that kind of stuff. And then I went to my doctor and was honest with my doctor. He prescribed me clonidine, something else, but I forget. So yeah, I used every tool in the toolbox for sure.
As far as life today, what does that look like for you?
Man, life today is pretty good. I went through like a journey with my job. I gave notice at my job and was like, hey, I can't do this anymore. And they were totally, if you ever want to come back, you can. I kind of detoured. I'm in sales, and I was like, I'm going to try insurance sales. And I did that, and it was horrible, and I hated it so much. And it brought back a lot of the emotions of like the anxiety and dread of like going to work and those things, which were like tightly associated with my Kratom use, because I always felt like Kratom gave me that edge in sales where I could talk and be confident and all that kind of stuff, and just had the energy to get through the day. And then I started that job probably 90 days into which is kind of when I hit that pink cloud too. So I had like 1 month where I was like gung ho and I did really good and I sold a bunch of insurance. And then I just like, all the emotions came flooding back. And I was like, oh my God, I hate this. So I had to go to my employer there and kind of do the same thing. It was like, hey, like my mental health is not, it's not doing well. So I left that job. Just as how the universe works, it seems like my old job, they called me and they were like, hey, would you want your position back? Your same sales desk, all your old clients, like back, like everything, like nothing happened. And I was like, heck yes. Because I realized that I was looking for something that was like that. And I was like, well, why don't I just go back to what I liked? So that was a huge like relief, because part of my getting well and everything was just kind of feeling like lost, like I didn't have purpose because I wasn't working. And I know that's kind of silly to tie everything to my job, but it was a big part of like my identity, I guess. And so having that back was really nice, and having the confidence to do something that I know I'm good at and be able to put my all into it, because when I was on Kratom, I would literally give like 30%. I feel like sometimes, like I would do like all or nothing days of just trying to make up for lost time. And then would stress me out. And like now that I'm sober minded, I start my day and I plan my day out. That's a big part of my recovery, is planning my day out into like hour chunks of time, so it doesn't overwhelm me of I have to do this for 10 hours or 8 hours or however long. Okay, I'm going to do 30 minutes of this one thing, and then I'm going to change and do something else. And in between that, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go stretch, or I'm going to get some water. That's a big part of kind of my breaking up my day. And then I really am, my involvement in the Quitting Kratom community is a big part of my purpose again, of, I've really seen it work where people come in, they lean on the people that have done it before them. The people that come in after that lean on the next group of people. And it's like, we're seeing people that are stacking 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, getting up in 1 year, 2 years. And it's just been really cool to watch and be a part of. So that's a big part of my recovery too. And I know that everybody's recovery is different. And it's like, you just got to find what works for you and what your balance of the different aspects of it are. But I really try to put a little bit in each bucket and kind of keep a balance in my life where I'm not going too hard with just work, or I'm not going too hard with just other stuff, So
I know you have talked about the Quitting Kratom meetings. You said you have an AA sponsor. Are you still going to AA meetings too? Do you do in-person stuff as well?
I don't really do AA in-person meetings anymore. Not that I am opposed to it, but just I've kind of found like that support that I was looking for in sort of this online community. I still work with my sponsor and am doing the 12 steps. I think that there is a lot of value in doing the step work. I know that some people get turned off by AA or the God side of things or like the religious affiliation with it, which is something that I personally kind of struggled with too. But I feel like modern day society, you adapt and take things what works for you and stuff. And I find a lot of value in meetings and just being able to share where I'm at and hear other people and where they're at. And so I get most of my meetings from the online community of Kratom. I just associate more with that. Like I don't associate myself as being an alcoholic as much, even though I don't drink. If I drink, it's not good. But I'm mostly doing the Kratom support stuff and then working the 12 steps with my sponsor. Yeah, I think a big part of it for me too that was nice about the Kratom community is when I was in AA, I never had enough time to feel like I was of value to anybody. Like I always felt like, well, I've only got 60 days. I'm still like a sponsee. I'm not a sponsor. Like I'm on this lower rung of, whatever. When I got into the Kratom support meetings, even when I had 30 days, somebody that had 3 days, I'm like, yo, 30 days, it gets better here. There isn't really that hierarchy of recovery. It's like, even if somebody has less time than me, I can still learn something from them. And I think that that's really valuable of letting people share where they're at and not the mentality that can happen sometimes. And I know it's not in every group of AA, but sometimes in groups of AA, they don't want newcomers to speak and they're like, just listen. And I just personally, for me, I think that that's the opposite way it should be. I think that if you're new, you should be the one talking because that's where we learn and grow is through talking it out and being like, oh, okay, maybe I'm taking Kratom because of this, or like just trying to get some of that stuff out of you.
Or to be reminded why we're here when you have a little bit of time and then you're starting to get a hold of real life. It's really nice to have someone in a meeting talking about what it's like to go through day 1 or day 2 or day 3 or day 4, and it's like, oh yeah, that sucked. I don't need to go back there ever again. It's just a really nice reminder. I found a lot of support in the meetings too. I've really enjoyed them and I've had a very similar experience. So anything that we didn't cover or anything I didn't ask that you wanted to go over?
I would say for anybody that's still struggling, the main things that I really found helpful were making a plan beforehand. That was a big difference this time. I didn't just decide in my head, like, tomorrow I'm not going to take Kratom. It was like, in a week from now, this is the day. This is the last day I'm taking it. I'm going to get all of the stuff that I need. I'm going to get all the supplements. I'm going to spend some money on supplements. I'm going to spend some money on getting a lot of yogurt, a lot of really easily digestible protein, because I think that's important. I'm going to take the time that I need off work. I think that's also important. Some people are able to go through the withdrawals and still work, and I think that you are an absolute soldier. For me, I couldn't do that. I had to put all of my effort into this is the only thing that matters. Kind of treated it like, and I told somebody this, I was like, if I got hit by a bus and I was in critical condition, it would take months for me to recover. Like it really would. Like, and it would, God willing, I lived through it even, but like that was the level of where I was at. I need to treat this like I am in critical condition because I am. My life is completely out of control. Hate where I'm at, like, and I don't want to do this anymore. So making that plan, making the financial commitment of taking time off work and of buying the supplements that I needed, getting into the recovery space and making some friends. There's a great resource. It's kratomquitters.com is where the meetings and the resources that I found through the Facebook group. There's a lot of resources on supplements there, and also like taper schedules and just things that really helped me get through that initial part because, like you said, I mean, that first little bit where it's just, getting through the acutes and getting through the stuff that's really like physical is one step, but then having sort of a plan in place for that eventual, like when you make it to the other side of the acutes and you're no longer feeling it in your body and it's just mental, like you're going to get to that spot where your brain is going to try to trick you and try to tell you that one, it's not going to send you back into withdrawals if you have just one. Like I've never heard anybody that tried the just one thing and it worked, because it usually feels horrible and you feel the guilt and all those emotions come back. And that's my experience from when I got some time off and then decided to take, just one spoonful of Kratom. It reset all of those cravings and all of that stuff in my brain. So I think that is, the really important stuff, is to get that foundation. I talk about it in meetings sometimes when I'm hosting the 4 pillars of recovery, and it's home, purpose, community, and health. And so I try to make sure that all 4 of those things are being fulfilled, that my mental and physical health are very important to me. I try to exercise. I try to eat healthy as much as I can, try to keep my stress levels under control. For my home, I make sure that, my home is clean. That's a big one for me. Like when there's clutter, I feel anxiety. My sense of purpose is fulfilled now in a lot of ways because of recovery and because of the community. And, I've got 5 or 6 people on my phone that are hitting me up pretty regularly that are getting through the acutes, or they're tapering, or they're just wherever they're at in their journey. And that keeps me connected to community. And we've got a signal chat, like a support chat that I check in with. And I try to reach out to people on Reddit when they're struggling. And just kind of, that really gives me that sense of purpose. Like if I can help one person, I know it sounds cliche, but like if I can help one person get out of this, like it's totally worth that time and energy to help that person. And then the last pillar is community. And that's kind of the same, like the meetings, just staying connected to the chat. Like there's people that I talk to every single day that I've never met in real life, but we see each other in meetings every single night. I wish them a good night. I'd say good morning, and it's like real friendships that have developed because we're all in the same boat trying to steer towards the same goal. So it's pretty cool.
That chat pops off.
Yeah, it does. It does. I know. I can't even keep up sometimes. I just got to jump in when I can and be like, I hope everybody's doing great. It's great for people when people are in the early stages where they just need to fill that time. It's so helpful. But yeah, once you kind of get past that part where you don't need the constant support, then I just pop in and say hi to people and talk to people about the meetings and what's going on and that kind of stuff. But it's a cool thing to see. I mean, it's organically kind of just grown and people are helping each other. And it's like I said, the people now that have 30 days are helping the people that have 3 days. And the people that have 6 months, 8 months, they can kind of just sit back and be like, wow, this is really cool, to watch this happen. And so, yeah, it's great.
There's something really special and unique about that community. It's something about that it doesn't have the hierarchy. You're right about other 12-step meetings. And underlining what you said about community being so important, I think it was Gabor Mate that said that the opposite of addiction is connection. That as addicts, we're fundamentally disconnected. And when we're more connected, we're healthier. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's a really good place to end. Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to listening to this when it comes out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Kratom in the headlines. This is Charlie. Today, we don't so much have a news item, but rather a commentary about the most common bits of feedback we get about the podcast. First, some listeners want us to give stronger warnings about the dangers of Suboxone and feel that we are too pro-medicated assisted treatment. We know it's a complicated, nuanced issue. Yes, some people have to go to drug treatment or a detox facility to get off subs. But for others, MAT is the way out of Kratom addiction for them. I'm a layperson, So definitely talk to a professional about such prescriptions. But 2 takeaways that I've seen from over 100 episodes of the show. First, people who are able to quit Kratom for a period of time but keep relapsing seem to be better candidates for MAT, as opposed to those who can't stop at all. They can't stop using Kratom. And then when they switch over to Suboxone, a lot of the time, many of those people transfer their out-of-control Kratom use right over to the Suboxone. Also, if you have a history of any time in the past misusing previous prescribed medicines, that may be a signal that subs isn't right for you. But if you're the type of person who follows directions, listens to your doctor, you are more likely to succeed on MAT. The second issue we get a lot of feedback about is supplements. And more specifically, when we hosted Emily and she introduced her Quick K recovery complex, we got a lot of emails. And today for the resource of the week, we have Matt on again, who's going to start offering his 14-day supplement Quick Kit for sale. Some people object to this. They think somehow these products are preying on quitters. We disagree. You can still go on Reddit or go to a Kratom meeting and get advice on what supplements to try. But you still have to go online or to a pharmacy and buy each of the individual ingredients. Like, for example, I just bought some L-Dopa. It was $20 for 120 pills. I will probably never go through 120 of those doses. And that's where Emily's Quick K or Matt's Quick Kit comes in. For about $60, you get 30 days of a day and nighttime doses of recovery complex featuring 10 different supplement types with Quick K. And for $30, you get 2 weeks of 12 different supplements in morning, afternoon, and evening packages with Matt's Quick Kit. These are 2 different price points, and the exact supplements differ in each of these options. Many of us were spending more than $30 or $60 a day on Kratom itself, so I don't understand the grumbling about the costs associated with these. And you are potentially saving some money not having to buy the individual bottles if you try these products out. Our only bias is that these products come from podcast listeners who are trying to help others, and we're glad that they're bringing different resource options to the community to help people quit Kratom. And that's Kratom in the headlines this week, a semi-rant by me. Keep it Kratom free. Welcome to Resource of the Week. This is Charlie. I'm here with Matt, who is returning from his interview a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you so much for having me back.
When you talked to Libby, you talked about these quick kits that you were going to send out to folks. What was the response to that?
It was overwhelming. And let me say straight off the bat, thank you to you and your team and to Libby for allowing me to have the chance to come on and talk about it, because connecting to all of the people that I was able to connect with has allowed me to send this quick kit out to over 60 people now. And the results have been overwhelmingly positive. I can't wait to talk about it.
The adventure that you're doing, the enterprise that you're giving a go, it's evolving to the next stage. What do you have in mind now?
Yeah, the 50 quick kits went fast. I was not prepared for just how quickly or how much demand there would be, because the requests came in steadily to the point where I was working fairly full time on this and sending off quick kits to all corners of the country, even up to Canada. And now that I've crossed that 50 quick kit threshold, I've had to transition to charging people simply so that I can afford to keep doing it, because it's been such an honor to see the results come in, see how people have been using this to get off Kratom, get off Suboxone, or get off the 2 of them together. And it's something that I really want to keep going forward with and see how far we can take this.
In your interview, you gave a really detailed overview of the contents, the different supplements and the amounts and the dosages that you were recommending. Can you give us like a quick overview of what's in your quick kit?
So there are 3 doses. It's a daily regimen. There's the morning dose, which is meant to give you motivation and energy to get out of bed and go attack your day. And that's going to have N-acetylcysteine, vitamin C, L-dopa, pre and probiotics, and B complex. And then there's the afternoon, which sometimes for people, the afternoon is when cravings start to really kick in and you might get distracted. And the afternoon is about getting refocused and calm and curbing the cravings. And you're going to have L-theanine, L-tyrosine, NAC, vitamin C, and ashwagandha. And then finally, and this is a really important one, the nighttime dose. The nighttime is when the brain heals the most and can rebalance itself the easiest. So it's really important to fall asleep. And I think we've all been to that point where we go to bed on the first or second night of withdrawals and we're thinking, I just can't sleep or I can't stay asleep. So in that one, you have GABA, you have L-tryptophan, you have melatonin, and you have vitamin C again. So when you get a quick kit, you're going to get a set of morning, a set of afternoon, and a set of nighttime heat-sealed packs. It's aluminum cellophane seal, so they're airtight. And they each have, this is just by coincidence, 5 supplements, a unique blend of 5 supplements meant to engender the things that I listed for the different doses to have the effects. And so you can take them, put it in your pocket when you're going out and keep it by your bedside. And it's 2 weeks worth of a supply.
Are you using a certain manufacturer?
I do buy from proven good manufacturing practice manufacturers, mainly Now and NutriCost and Carlisle for the pre and probiotics.
And one of the benefits is usually when you buy this, you need to buy 30 days worth or 90 days. So you have a lot of surplus pills. So the idea here is you're just getting the enough that you need. You won't have a bunch of bottles left over at the end of your quit.
Right. This is one of the most important things if you're thinking about getting the quick kit. Every single ingredient is in here on purpose. And if you were to buy every single one of them, it would cost you probably over $200. And you would end up with how many hundreds of extra pills. So this is, you get what you need and then you're done. And then hopefully at that point, you've moved on from Kratom.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell? We're excited just to bring another resource to the audience. Anything you'd like to say to wrap up?
Yes, I think there will be people out there wondering, okay, that's great. He's back, but does it really work? What were the results? And I'd really like to highlight the results that have come in from people who have used this. And these are unbiased. This is just feedback that was sent to me. So about an hour before this call, I got a text from somebody and it said, "Hey, Matt, it's insert name. The supplements have given me a new hope and helped through the most difficult part of the process. I've told a family member about what you sent me because he's struggling with Kratom. Can I get a shipment for him?" And I get something like that and I have to pinch myself that this is even my life right now. And here's another one I got this morning, which I like because it really reminds me of me. I used to work in statistics and so I'm a skeptic. And she talks about the withdrawals she was facing and then says, "Thanks for checking in. I think the supplements really helped." And I tend to be a bit of a skeptic other than simple things like food, rest, and exercise. So I don't think it's a placebo. And I didn't think they would actually work, smiley face. So thank you so much. I'm 8 days clean from everything today. And I think 2 weeks off of Kratom. And those are just 2 pieces of feedback I got today. The most demonstrable thing that I've heard from people thus far, if you're on the fence about getting a quick kit, I've heard this from multiple people. It's about day 4 or 5 of the quit from Kratom, clean from Kratom, when suddenly they're feeling withdrawals. And then they realize they forgot to take the morning or the morning and afternoon doses. Oh, I forgot to take the quick kit today. And the withdrawals have hit. And they text me and say, "Matt, this happened. And I felt the withdrawals, but then I got back on the regimen and they went away." And what happens once, and I think it's a miracle. It happens twice, I think this thing works. And it happens 3 times, and I think I got to dedicate myself to do this. And that's why I'm so happy to be here today, because I really want to keep bringing this thing out to people and having similar results.
Excellent. And we'll have an easy link in the show notes so that people can find you and that don't have to stumble with the URL. And we appreciate you putting this out there. And that's the resource of the week this week.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.